Asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Please lead me from what is truth, what is untruth to truth, and lead me from the ignorance of divinity to divinity, and please lead me from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. Good morning, friends. The subject of my talk this morning is experiencing God through rational thinking. There are different methods of experiencing God in Hinduism, and this is one of the methods. And each of these methods is called a yoga. Yoga means which helps a person to experience the divinity which is in everywhere. Yoga, communion with divinity. And there are 6 systems of philosophy in Hinduism, which we call Vedanta. And one of those systems is jnana yoga, that is the path of rational thinking to experience divinity. So I'll be talking about this yoga. The Upanishads that we have in Hinduism or Vedanta, they are called philosophy. Philosophy also means a love of knowledge. Which knowledge? The highest knowledge. The highest knowledge is that everything is divine. The word Upanishad means something, the proximity of which will loosen the grip of ignorance, which does not help us to experience that we are all divine. And philosophers are seekers of truth, and they won't accept anything which is not proved to be true. And something which helps us to know something that is true is called a pramana, means of knowing what is real or truth. This particular school of philosophy, Jnana Yoga, accepts a few pramanas. First is perception. If I am seeing a distant mountain which is several miles away from me, then I know that this mountain must be really there because I am perceiving it. So my perception is the proof of its existence. Then I suddenly see some smoke coming out of the trees that cover the mountain. And so that also I come to know through perception. And then something which I don't see and yet I know to be true, that I come to know through inference. That means there must be fire up on the mountain. Without fire there could not have been any smoke. So through inference also you can know. And reliable testimony. a Swami who was a posthumous child. And when he was born, his father was not there, he had died. But he knew that he had his father. How did he know it? He believed in it. Because he came to know that his father was such and such person, and he came to know that through the testimony of his mother. That Swami came and worked in this country. His name was Swami Swahananda. He was a posthumous child, but he believed that he had a father. And he knew that to be true because he had come to know about his father from his mother through reliable testimony. And then there is another method of validating truth, which is upamana, that is through comparison. While in India, I saw quite a few water buffaloes, and they're easily visible in India, in that part of India where I grew up. And then I heard that there is a kind of wild buffalo, name is bison, and they are there in America. And after coming here, when I saw such a creature, then I knew that to be bison. Through comparison, this knowledge came. But there are some philosophers, they are called hedonist philosophers. According to them, the sole purpose of human life is to have sense enjoyment. That's why they are called charvakas. They say these things which are pleasant to hear. Most people like to enjoy the world, so they talk about that. And they try to prove that the sole purpose of human life is to enjoy the world. They don't accept the existence of God. Then one such philosopher came to a certain village and gave a talk to prove that there was no God. And the sole purpose of human life was to enjoy, have sense pleasure. After the talk, as was the custom, the boy went to the philosopher and saluted him. And the philosopher asked him what his name was. Then the boy said, "Revered sir, don't you already know what my name is?" He said, "No, I don't know." He said, "Who is your father?" The philosopher asked. Then the boy said, "Don't you know who is my father?" Then the philosopher asked, Where do you live?" The boy said, "Revered sir, you must know that also." He said, "No, I don't know any of these things." Then the little boy said to the philosopher, "Revered sir, then maybe there is God, and which you don't know yet. So you have yet to know God." So he talked about knowledge about God. There is theoretical knowledge about God. There is experiential conviction about God also. There are some people who had experienced divinity. And that testimony that God is there is reliable testimony. And according to some saintly philosophers who had experienced God, God, in God's true state, is beyond time, space, and causation. Therefore, God is eternity. And God is beyond space, that's why God is infinity. And being beyond causation, God is beyond action also. God doesn't act. So that is the concept of divinity in this school of thinking. God is ekam eva advityam. God is one alone and without a second. God alone exists. Nothing else does. Once a person came to Sri Ramakrishna, who is a divine incarnation, and said to him, "Revered sir, the scriptures say that I am God, but why do I not experience it?" Then Sri Ramakrishna said, "Well, whether you experience it or not, you are God." To experience God, one has to go beyond limitation. So there are some sentences in Hindu scriptures, these are called great sentences or Mahavakyas. They all let us know that everything is divinity. Sarvam Khalidam Brahma, everything is divinity. Aham Brahmasmi, I am also divinity. Tattvamasi, you are divinity. Ayam Atma Brahma, that's something which you consider as your soul, that is also Brahman. That is also divinity. This teaching was given by another divine incarnation. And we read about that in the Bhagavad Gita, that scripture, which is considered the essence of all the Upanishads. There it is mentioned that what we are is beyond time, space, and causation. We are something which is never born, nor does it ever die. It is eternal. That means that is eternity, infinity, and beyond action. That means that is Brahman. That's what Sri Krishna was trying to teach his student Arjuna, Prince Arjuna. And I have mentioned that our scriptures teach that Brahman or divinity is one alone and nothing else is real. So what is real? Our scripture says something which is eternal and changeless, that is real. So only divinity is real. Anything which changes is not real. It may seem to be temporarily existing, but not eternally existing. Such as our bodies or this world around us. That is, it keeps on changing. So this world is not real. What is real then? So our scriptures say that only divinity is real. Also our scriptures teach that Brahman is Anandam, Sat Chit Anandam. Sat means existence, Chit means consciousness, and Anandam. Anandam does not mean happiness. Anandam is beyond sadness and happiness. When this word Anandam is translated into English, it is translated as happiness by many, which is not correct translation. It is neither happiness nor sadness, nor bliss. It is beyond all of them. Anandam is like relief from headache. A person is suffering from headache and he is in a state of suffering. Now, then he takes some painkiller, some tablets, and after a while his headache is gone. Is he suffering now? No. His suffering is gone. Is he enjoying now? No, it is neither enjoyment nor suffering. It is a state of relief from suffering. So peace is, or Anandam is like that. It is neither suffering nor enjoyment. So divinity is Anandam. And divinity's existence, it is called Sat. That means only divinity exists. And divinity existing, everything else appears to exist. Here we have to take the help of another analogy. That is, many of you have watched movies. So you remember the movie screen. Movie screen is white, and on that motion pictures are projected. And in the motion pictures you may see so many things. Some people walking, and you may see mountains, and you may see trees, and all these things. And their existence is due to the existence of the movie screen. Had the movie screen been not there, they would not exist. So also this world which we experience is like a motion picture on the movie screen, which is impersonal divinity. And divinity existing, all these things which we experience, they appear to exist. The movie screen is changeless. That's why divinity is being eternal, is the cause of existence of everything else. And it is also consciousness. Our minds become conscious, then they can think. This consciousness is not a quality of the mind. It is divinity. So when consciousness is there, then the divinity is manifested there. Divinity is equally present everywhere, but not equally manifested. That's why in a conscious mind, divinity is manifested more than a non-living object such as a chair or a table. But it is equally present everywhere, divinity. But its manifestation differs. So consciousness is everywhere. In some place it is manifested, in some place it is not. And that consciousness is divinity. And that consciousness is also reality. because it is changeless and eternal. I come from a country where the national thought is Satyameva Jayate Nanitam. The government of India, they use that as the policy. Truth alone triumphs and not untruth. This is a statement from our Upanishads. Satyameva Jayate Nanitam. Truth alone triumphs and not what is not truth. Anrita is untruth. So when I was in India, I was at the headquarters for a number of years, which is near Calcutta, in a place called Belur Math. And there, some speakers would sometimes come and give speeches. And there was a minister of the federal government of India. His name was Karan Singh. He came from a princely state, that's why he is known as Prince Karan Singh. He came and gave a talk. And I heard his talk. And there he mentioned that this is the policy of our government. Truth alone triumphs and not untruth. Satyam eva jayate nanitam. But what is being practiced now, unfortunately, is opposite. Mithya eva jayate no satyam, he said. That is lying in politics. Without lying, there cannot be any politics. That's what you are saying. And what is truth? Truth is divinity. Satyam. Jnanam anantam brahma. Divinity is truth and infinite consciousness. That's what is mentioned in our scriptures. And divinity is Satyacha Satyam. It is the highest of all truths. This is one of the highest teachings that we have in Vedanta. And how that truth can be experienced? Well, by going beyond the limits of our ego. It is our ego which is the center of our individual existence. And that is a thought of our conscious mind. The owner and the object owned cannot be the same. I own my mind, that's why I cannot be my mind. As the owner, I have to be different from it. But unfortunately, the idea of my individual existence is a thought of my conscious mind. So there I am identified with my mind. So as long as I have my ego, I don't really know who I am. I have to go beyond my ego. And what lies beyond my ego is divinity. That's why one has to transcend one's ego. To experience that I am divinity, I have to go beyond my ego. Aham Brahmasmi. There is a Swami in our order. At the point of death, he was saying, Aham Brahmasmi, I am divinity. He was highly evolved spiritually. So, we are the changeless and eternal divinity, whether we know it or not. And that is a state of eternal bliss Shanti. And we should all strive to experience it. Then all the suffering and enjoyment, so-called suffering and enjoyment, they'll be gone. And what will remain is peace, Shanti, that is Brahman, that is divinity. Om asato ma satgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Oh Lord, please let me go beyond this temporary idea of temporary existence. I am eternity. Please help me from the ignorance which doesn't allow me to experience divinity. Ignorance is like a darkness. Please take me out of this darkness. And please take me out of the idea that I am mortal. Mrityorma amritam gamaya. So this is a prayer which is there in our scriptures. And let us remember this prayer. Thank you all so much for your patience to listen to this talk.